Coraline is directed by Henry Selick, with the screenplay also by Henry Selick, based on the novella of the same name by Neil Gaiman, starring Dakota Fanning, Terry Hatcher, Jennifer Saunders, Dawn French, John Hodgman, and Ian McShane. While exploring her new home, a girl named Coraline discovers a secret door, behind which lies an alternate world that closely mirrors her own, but in many ways is better. She rejoices in her discovery until Other Mother and the rest of her parallel family try to keep her there forever. Coraline must use all her resources and bravery to make it back to her own family and life. Coraline is the first feature film by the stop-motion animation studio Laika, which is responsible for their other films such as Paranorman, The Box Trolls, and recently Kubo and the Two Strings. I recently reviewed Kubo and the Two Strings, and if you would like to check out my review of that film, I will leave a link to the description down below. Now I want to talk about Studio Laika's past films, and Coraline just so happens to be the first one they ever made. Believe it or not, I actually watched Coraline first before I went to see Kubo and the Two Strings, because I wanted to familiarize myself with what Studio Laika is capable of. Now, I know that sounds kind of a weird reason why to watch something before jumping into another film by the same studio, but I've heard much good about Coraline before Kubo and the Two Strings came out, so I wanted to kind of dive into what Studio Laika could be capable of. After seeing Coraline and Kubo and the Two Strings, I can assure you that Studio Laika is capable of treating audiences to works of art. The animation in this film is very good. I wouldn't go around to say that Coraline is a beautiful looking film. It's got some creepy stuff in it. But the crewmen working on this film knew exactly what they were getting into, and they knew what they were trying to pull off. And the creepy stuff actually works for this type of film. I won't say exactly what is creepy about the film because I would rather let you figure that out for yourself. But the angle shots and some of the scenes in this film are also very impressive for a stop-motion animated film. Damn cat shedding his fur all over me. I also like the cinematography in this film as well, because there were some angles I thought was pretty cool, and even some of the close-up shots give that creepy vibe for the viewer. And this is actually something I don't think Coraline gets a little bit much credit for, but the cinematography was another aspect about Coraline that I actually really enjoyed looking at. My only nitpick with Coraline is that there was a scene or two where the animation did look a bit choppy. Now, personally, I don't feel that to be a detractor with the film because the rest of the film is consistent with its animation. Sure, there's a scene or two where the animation looks choppy, but it doesn't look that bad. The film score was composed by Bruno Calais. Pardon my French. French names are not easy for me to pronounce for some reason. Please bear with me. All I can say is that this guy did do a pretty good job with the film score of Coraline. And I heard he is considered the Danny Elfman of French film composers. So at least that's something. The acting is also great in this film, and sure, Dakota Fanning has had a lot of attention in the past, but hey, she was a good child actor. And the rest of the cast is just as great as well. The characters in this film are very likable. I enjoy Wybie in this film, even though he is not present in the source material whatsoever, which is the novella of the same name by Neil Gaiman. And I don't mind if a film adaptation takes some liberties by adding a little something to enhance the source material in some way, shape, or form. And I don't mind if the film adaptation detracts a little bit from the source material as well. There's got to be some liberties taken when you translate a book into a film, because if you try to put everything from a book into a film, it does feel a little bit tiring. Hell, my favorite film of all time, Forrest Gump, is drastically different when compared to its source material, or so I've heard. Mr. Bobinski is fun to watch, and he's actually one of my favorite characters in the film. Hell, Miss Spink and Miss Forcible are great comic relief characters for this film. As for the titular character Coraline, my first impression of her was, gee, she sure is kind of bitchy in this film, but that was until about 20 minutes in where Coraline is looking at a photo of her friends back in the school she used to go to before Coraline and her family moved out. As soon as Coraline looked at the photo, as soon as that scene played out, I understood why Coraline was the way she is initially. And considering the age she is, it's understandable. But I am so glad that Coraline is not like this for the rest of the film because she is clever at times, and she is brave as well. Her characterization is good. It's better than having her whine for the entire film, making her one-dimensional. So I'm relieved that Coraline actually does show some growth in this film. After all, the title of this film is named after her. As for the plot, even though I mentioned a scene where Coraline is looking at a photo of her friends, the less you know about this film, the better, because Coraline is quite an experience. Now, I am under the impression that Neil Gaiman may have been a bit inspired by Alice in Wonderland while he was writing this story, because as I was watching this film, I had a bit of an Alice in Wonderland vibe while experiencing Coraline. I don't know. This film kind of reminded me a little bit of Alice in Wonderland. And I find that okay because it wasn't a blatant ripoff of Alice in Wonderland. In fact, it doesn't even have a rabbit hole in it. It just has a bit of a familiarity, and it feels a bit similar to Alice in Wonderland. But like I said, not that much. In comparison, Alice in Wonderland is simplistic, regardless of adaptation, whereas Coraline is a film that you actually have to pay attention to. And I can guarantee you there's probably going to be a thing or two you may miss during the first viewing, and that's actually okay because this film does guarantee a high rewatch value. I also love the direction of this film, and how this film is directed kind of reminds me a bit of The Nightmare Before Christmas. Truly a stop-motion animated classic. And what do you know? Director Henry Selick, who directed Coraline, also directed The Nightmare Before Christmas. Who would have known? And I truly think that Henry Selick was the right man for the job to direct this film because it truly is a remarkable stop-motion animated film. By the way, if you're a little confused about the ending, which I will not give away, rewatch the opening right after watching the film. Overall, Coraline is a terrific first impression from Studio Laika, and this film proves that stop-motion animation continues to be a refreshing art form, and Coraline is now one of my favorite stop-motion animated films. And like Kubo and the Two Strings, Coraline gets a 10. If you like this review, feel free to hit the like button. And if you want to follow my channel, please feel free to hit the subscribe button. And as always, you're welcome to leave me a comment if you feel so inclined. And thanks for watching. And I will see you in the next review.